Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We're meeting today for work sessions on 4 bills. We'll first begin with introductions, and we'll start with Senator Libby.
Morning, everyone. My name is Nate Libby, and I proudly represent all of the people of Lewiston in the Maine Senate.
And Senator Pouliot.
Senator Matt Pouliot, represent Senate District 15, the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Vanceboro.
Representative Bickford.
Good morning, Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn.
All right. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mickey Carmichael. I represent 22 communities in Hancock, Washington, and Penobscot counties.
Representative Collins is not with us right now, and Representative Gramlich has to be in another place right now. Representative Hanley.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is Pittston, Alna, Wiscasset, and Randolph.
All right. Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Ted Kryzak. I represent District 20, Acton, Lebanon, and part of Shepton.
Representative Matlock.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
And Representative Perry.
Good morning, all. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Bangor and part of Orono in the Maine House.
And Representative Sachs. I think you're
Morning, everyone.
Go ahead.
I know terrible technical difficulties this morning. I'm only going to be on camera to vote. My name is Melanie Sachs. I'm a proud representative of House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownal. Happy Thursday, everybody.
All right. And Representative Carey.
Thank you for the reminder that it's Thursday, Representative Sachs. My name is Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair.
And I'm Senator Ben Shipman. I represent Senate District 27, which is part of the city of Portland, serve as Senate Chair of the committee. Also with us is our clerk, Avery Page, as well as our analyst, Julie Jones. And before we start our work sessions today, we had, a couple weeks ago, we had talked about the issue of our scheduling and Wednesday mornings being a conflict for how House Democrats have a caucus on Wednesday morning. And we had some discussion, but at the time, we heard they might be considering changing that, so we didn't talk about it much more. But we did have a brief discussion, and I believe Representative Hanley had asked if we were going to make a change in the future, if we'd be bringing it back to the committee first, and we said we would. So it's come up again that they still have a caucus on Wednesday morning. It's a conflict for some members, so wanted to bring that up to the committee and see what folks think about the idea of Wednesday mornings and whether we should continue meeting at 9 or moving to 10 o'clock because of the conflict, and just wanted to see what people thought about that, so we could have a brief discussion, maybe do a quick show of hands and decide what to do. So if anybody has anything they'd like to say about that, feel free.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I haven't participated in one of the House Democratic caucuses in about a month, and I feel totally disconnected from everything that's going on over there. So yeah, I would like to maybe get back into the swing of things if possible.
I concur.
I will have a standing conflict with Wednesday mornings because state and local government meets. We generally meet at 10. I have been bopping in here to make sure that there's a quorum, but I'm not going to be able to help much on Wednesdays except for quorum.
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern with that is quorum, because I know that Senator Pouliot said he has a meeting every Wednesday at 10, and I know that your own state and local meets at 10, and both Representative Gramlich and Representative Hanley meet on the Environment Committee. They meet at 10, so we'd have at least 4 members right off the bat that we know wouldn't be with us at 10. And if other members had to be in other places to introduce bills, we may not have quorum to even be able to do anything. But Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I haven't made a single Democratic caucus yet either.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to go to the Democratic Caucus on Wednesday morning.
But I kind of like 9. It gets us going, gets us started. The only time I have a conflict with 9 is if the rare chance that I may have to work until 9. But even this morning, I was out at 8, so it wasn't a big deal. I don't have a problem with 9.
And Representative Hanley, followed by Representative Sachs.
My opinion is that the Democrat House Caucus might want to consider what the Republican House Caucus does. We caucus in the evenings when the workday is done for everyone, and usually most people are free. So I might offer that suggestion to the other side of the aisle. And when I look at the calendar load ahead of us, we need to be starting at 8:30.
Okay. And sometimes, I mean, I don't know what you guys do. We've been having committee caucuses like 8:15, 8:30, before the committee meets. But Representative Sachs, go ahead.
I know at one point, Mr. Chair, we had talked about perhaps Wednesday afternoons for our sessions as opposed to Wednesday mornings. Had that been discussed?
It has not been under consideration at the moment.
Yeah, we've been meeting Tuesday and Thursdays at 9 for work sessions. So, we thought having Wednesday morning, just having our morning so that people had consistency in afternoons. I'm not sure about Wednesday afternoon, but Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I've got another committee that I serve on, but we could look at meeting Wednesday afternoons if people would rather do that. I mean, sometimes we have a public hearing on 10 bills. So if we don't start till the afternoon, we're going to be going into the evening, depending on how many people testify. So I'm not sure I'm crazy about the idea of waiting till the afternoon to start, but we'll see Representative Kryzak followed by Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no preference, either 9 or 10. I believe this is up to you folks, and you probably should do it outside of this committee.
Go ahead, Representative Carmichael.
I can make it work. I always like getting going earlier, but I'll make it work, whatever fits for the rest of the committee. But I do prefer earlier, but whatever works for you guys.
And Senator Pouliot.
The only thing I would say is that I've noticed during our work sessions that for the most part, we're getting through like 3 or 4 bills in an hour, which is great. I kind of feel like tax policy, the one thing I like about tax committee is it's pretty black and white. There isn't like long, lengthy discussions about policy, nuance or whatever. So I'm just wondering if we could maybe just do more work sessions in the days that we're going to be doing them. Try to bang them out, instead of going from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11, maybe we go 2 or 3 hours and just get a lot more done. Just a thought.
So it looks like everybody's weighed in. So why don't we just do maybe just a quick show of hands to see what people think with either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and then we can move on to our work sessions. So if those in favor of continuing to meet at 9 o'clock, please just show of hands, raise your hand. I mean, I only prefer it because of the quorum issue, but so I'll raise my hand on that. So it looks like there's 4 or 5 of us, 6 of us raising our hands. So those of us would prefer 10 o'clock. What do you think, Senator Libby and Senator Matlack?
I didn't know if no preference was going to be an option. That's what I would raise my hand for.
Okay, yeah.
Me too. Either one is going to be inconvenient.
So it was like there was like 5 or 6 of us for 9, 4 of us for 10, and a couple for no preference.
I think I counted 6 for 9, 4 for 10, and then I guess we would have 2 for no preference.
Okay.
Plus, we're missing Rep. Gramlich.
Yeah, maybe, so let's just leave it at that. You know, Representative Terry and I can talk about it. We'll check in with the other members that weren't here and go from there. It's not like an official decision the committee needs to make. I just thought that last time we talked about it, one member did specifically ask if we were going to consider changing it again, if we'd bring it back to the committee before we made that decision. And I didn't feel comfortable just deciding to change it without at least respecting what we said we would do and bringing it back to the committee. So now that everybody's kind of spoke about it and let us know your conflicts and feelings about the idea of 9 versus 10, and we've had a show of hands, we'll leave it at that. And we'll move on.
I'm just gonna need a time soon though for next Wednesday, because we have 11 bills for a public hearing that we haven't yet found a time for. So I'm gonna need to advertise that soon.
Okay.
We'll get back to
So
you
at
by-
least for next Wednesday, we need consensus on a time.
We'll get back to you by the end of the meeting, Avery.
All right, thank you.
Great.
All right.
So we'll let's open up the work session on all the 1118. This is an act to promote.
Mr. Chair, before we get into that, I understood that advertising was waived for public hearings.
It is.
All
I
right.
mean, I don't need to do it ASAP. I'm just trying to get the notice out as soon as I can.
And just to be clear, who are the members that weren't here that didn't vote? I know Representative Gramlich isn't here, and
Gramlich.
That's it.
Yep.
Representative Collins did weigh in.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're all set to start. We'll now open up the work session on OD 1118. It's an act to promote reliable rural high-speed internet, sponsored by Senator Lawrence. And Avi, if any of the sponsors of these bills are here, Senator Lawrence, Representative Arata, Lookner, or Hepler, if you can just let them in, that would be great in case they have anything.
Yeah, we have a Reparata.
Okay. Great. And if Julie, if you want to put the chart up and you could walk us through this bill, that'd be great.
Yep, coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. LD 1118, as you said, is an act to promote reliable rural high-speed internet, sponsored by Senator Lawrence. This is similar to legislation that was considered in the 129th, but was not able to be disposed of before the end of the session. The bill would provide an income tax credit for high-speed internet service providers who engage in a project approved by the Commissioner of DECD that provides high-speed internet service where the average number of potential customers per mile does not exceed 20, and the cost to the customers does not exceed the Consumer Price Index cost for high-speed internet service in the metropolitan area. Apparently, the CPI people calculate those kinds of costs. It would apply to tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2022. Comcast, a provider company, testified at the public hearing and did propose some changes. I have a copy of their amendment if you want me to put it up. And I know one of the things they were doing was to change language in the bill that referred to fiber optic cable to instead call it wireline infrastructure capable of qualifying speeds. I don't know the technology enough to know whether that's just a modernization of terminology or whether it's a different type of technology. And they also have proposed a couple of other changes. I have that amendment that I can bring up on the screen for you. It's also on the Taxation Committee webpage under the committee materials.
Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is considered high speed or a qualifying speed? How's that defined?
Qualifying speed is high-speed internet service with speeds at a minimum of 20 megabits per second downstream and a minimum of 20 megabits per second upstream. it's defined in the proposed statute.
Okay, thank you, because cell phone companies, I know my cell phone company, T-Mobile, I just changed from my whopping 3 megabyte service to 50 downstream and 30 upstream. So I believe that can be done pretty easily by a lot of the cell phone companies. And it's not any more expensive than cable would be, or
Okay. Representative Krasik.
Nope, sorry, I had my hand up from before. I apologize.
Okay, no, it's fine. And Avery, you said the sponsor is not with us? Senator Lawrence, is he not here?
No, I just looked again. He's not on.
He's not, but Peggy Schaefer is here from Connect Me if anybody has any questions about that.
Yeah, maybe we can bring Peggy on if we can, just to see if there's been some discussions with Senator Lawrence and the work that they're doing with Connect Me in terms of how this bill would fit into that work. Welcome, Ms. Schaefer.
Good morning. So I'd like to start with a little hint on Zoom. If you hit the space bar and hold it down, your mute goes off. So there you go. There's my good deed for the day.
All right.
So what's your question?
Well, just wondering, like, with the work that you're doing with Connect Me and like, how would this bill fit into that? Is it duplicative? Is it sort of, would it supplement work? Would it help further the goal? I mean, I just, so we got what's going on over there, and the governor's talked about, major work on broadband over the next year or two.
So our work at Connect Me, our focus really starts with how we bring service to a community and a community engagement in that process. And that's really critical for what we call take rate, which is how the systems operate. This bill really doesn't take any consideration into what communities want or what they're thinking about. And so therefore sort of it can so the take rate is sort of is an ongoing issue. We had one company expand service in a town in Western Maine that they thought they were going to do very well, and they ended up with about a 30% take rate, which is not really enough to really help with the operational costs. So that's a concern. The operational cost of this is a concern. The fiscal note on this is a concern. The other piece that worries that this does not a tax break does not draw down federal or local or other state funds. So it doesn't really give us the multiplier effect that we would have, what we have with grants and loans. And so that's really, we're not a big fan of this. I think the fiscal note is not in the governor's budget, and the process of how they do this, which essentially gives tax breaks to companies who are trying to expand their network, excludes the conversation with the community, which we feel is a really critical part of this. And it doesn't really maximize the use of federal and or local funds. Yesterday, our board defined broadband service also, by the way, as 100 over 100. That's going out for public comment. They'll probably adopt that at in the May meeting. So that also impacts, if this bill passes, that piece. It would be a different standard than what we use.
Representative Krasik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Forgive me, I'm driving back from Augusta after last night. I had booked for 2 nights and I'm heading home now. I'm just wondering if you folks are trying to do any kind of talking to the towns and the cities with all this federal money they're getting, this one-time money. I believe this is a perfect time to expand broadband using that money rather than starting new programs that they're going to have to tax people on later. And I believe there is some money in there that's for broadband. But if each town was to kick in some of that extra money that they're getting, it seems to me that we could have broadband across the state.
We have a unique opportunity right now. We are all waiting for federal guidance on how that money can be used. And for towns, the town money and the county money, broadband is one of sort of the four sort of categories they have. Broadband and sewer and water is one of those categories. The federal guidance on that is going to come out at the beginning of May 10th, I believe is their timeframe, which will give us a much better idea of how those funds can be used. But you're absolutely right. The combination of those federal funds for towns, the federal funds for counties, the state funds and provider funds, capital investment on behalf of the provider this could change the game entirely in Maine. And importantly, three pieces of that, right? The town funds, the county funds, and the federal funds coming to the state are not state taxpayer dollars. I mean, we all pay into the federal system, but so they are really an opportunity to maximize this federal money and minimize our direct state, and I don't want to say it that way, but it will amplify whatever the state taxpayers put into it by this federal money.
No, I agree.
This tax credit is sort of outside that process. That's to us is the mismatch.
A follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm just wondering if you guys are making some kind of effort to get this information to the towns, because I'm afraid that we're going to start spending on, new hiring, new programming, which has been done in the past. I was a former selectman, and this is the perfect time to fix a problem that we have across the state that we've really seen since the pandemic. And we've seen since you started talking at the beginning of this, where you didn't have your 100 over 100.
Yeah, so we're beginning to put together a strategy to talk to the towns, right? We're working with the Maine Broadband Coalition to figure out how to, communities that have already been doing community planning, they're sort of in the right place for this. Even my town, which has pretty good service, I'm on the budget committee, and the first question they asked about these federal funds is, okay, Peggy, who doesn't have service in Bassboro and how can we get it to them? So it is a conversation that's happening in towns. I think the bigger conversation, because there's potentially more money, is actually counties. So we are looking at this. We're trying to some extent, we're beginning the conversations in anticipation of what the feds may or may not say around how these funds can be used.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Representative Bixby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is more for Senator Libby, and that is, does OPEGA have a schedule of when they're going to look at Connect Maine, or whatever the program is that we put millions of dollars into already, and how many customers are actually being put on versus the amount of money being spent?
We do an annual report to the legislature. We do an annual report to our committee of oversight that includes that information, and it's up on, I believe it's either on the EUT website or somewhere, right? But we do include an annual sort of, here's a spreadsheet of how much money we've passed out. Until a couple of years ago, we raised our build standard to 10 over 10. And so some of the early builds were for wireless technology, which needs to be upgraded, or DSL technology, which also needs to be upgraded. And we've had $12 million over 12 years combined. So it's a long time span for $12 million.
What's the average cost per mile?
It varies on where you are. Roughly, we use a number of roughly $35,000 a mile, which, if you think of paving a road is about $100,000 per mile. So that's about the cost. That, it varies. If you have more complicated poles, it's more expensive. But that is the rough guess of how much it costs. We use that as sort of the back of the envelope.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of miles can be done for $12 million.
Yeah, I think that I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but we did, we have provided support all across the state. I think what we helped Unitel company I think we put in 400,000, they put in about 1.4 million, and they brought fiber to almost everybody in the Unitel footprint. We did a bunch of wireless stuff up in Washington County. We did some expansion of DSL over in the western part, but the problem with the DSL is that all now needs to be upgraded, right? Because the service is not adequate for today's standards, which is why we are moving to 100 over 100 standard. So we don't have to do this again.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Representative Matlock.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Ms. Schaefer. I have a question about quality of lines, as it were. In a proposed amendment, the tax credit, the proposed amendment from Comcast, it says wireless, they've replaced a fiber optic cable with wireline infrastructure capable of qualifying speeds. To my way of thinking, that's not really as robust as the fiber optic. Am I correct in saying that?
You are correct. Fiber optic is the state of the art. It has been for 20 years, right? It is sort of everything that we all of your what we call transport, all of your middle mile is all fiber for a reason. And so fiber to the home is sort of the relatively gold standard, right? And is capable. Our interest is that we invest in this basic infrastructure, stuff on the poles once, and that the electronics that give you how much speed you can get can be switched out and actually do age, right? So they age. But the electronics are a lot cheaper and easier to switch out than restringing fiber on the poles. And so the cable technology is a coax. And you can play with the coax and get a pretty good speed out of it. But certainly you can get 100 over 100 if you use the new sort of, I won't go into the details, but there's a new sort of technology around them that they can get that kind of speed. So it is capable, but I think our strategy that the board is very interested in is making sure, again, that we build this infrastructure once and that it is capable of carrying and being upgraded easily by switching out electronics.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Schaefer, do you think we need this bill in light of everything else that's going on, or not?
I don't. I think the fiscal note will be a surprise.
No.
Like big, right? I did a very back of the envelope, incredibly back of the envelope, which is 1,000. If it's $1,000 per home unserved, and I looked at Franklin County, which is about 50% unserved. Looked at how many houses are in Franklin County and locations. Took away half of it, times that by 1,000, and the number was staggering. And so we have other counties that have, Piscataquis has their connections are a little higher, a little lower, whatever you want to look at, has more people disconnected than Franklin County. So I would think, I don't know what Maine Revenue Services said, but my guess is this fiscal note is a little high.
Yeah, it sounds like there's significant work going on with what you're doing. And
there is. We're about to, if we have any, we are about to get, I refer to it as a tsunami of federal funds, right? Which is between the $10 billion that's in the American Relief Plan that's coming, that we're waiting for Treasury guidance on. That should be about 129 million for the state. The American Jobs Plan has, I forget how much in for broadband, but a significant amount for broadband, which does include that money does include affordability, which is really important because people have to be able to connect to this. So between all of those activities, there's about to be a tsunami of money, hopefully coming into the state that we can direct and make a significant change in what we look at for connectivity in Maine.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Representative Perry, followed by Representative Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The sponsors shouldn't feel bad about this. They had no idea when they sponsored the bill we're going to have all this federal money, and we all learned a lot about something we didn't know about. But I think maybe at this time I'd move on not to pass.
Second.
We have a motion about not to pass made by Representative Perry, I believe seconded by Representative Terry. Is that correct? Is that correct, Representative Terry?
Correct.
Okay, I thought I heard your voice there first. Okay, great. So we have a motion on the table about not to pass. Representative Hanley, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to do the same thing. And having been on the Energy Committee, I listened to a lot of the testimony around broadband. And we're doing the right thing by not promoting this piece of legislation.
All right. Any further committee discussion? I know DAFS was with us. I don't know if we want to just give them an opportunity to speak. I think they wanted to weigh in. Maybe we should do that before we vote. Someone here from DAFS that wanted to weigh in? Are they with us, Avery? I thought you said that they wanted to come in and.
No one's
So this is Daniel D'Alessandro, staff attorney at Maine Revenue Services, Office of Tax Policy. We don't have anything else to add on this bill.
Okay, excellent. Great. So we have a motion on the table. All those in favor, please signify. So I believe that's unanimous of all members present. You have everything you need, Avery? Great.
I do.
That motion carries. So we'll close the work session on LD 1118 and we'll go right into work session on LD 1251. This is Representative Arata's bill, an act to encourage charitable giving. See the sponsors with us. Great to see you, Representative Arata. We'll have Julie walk us through this bill and then we'll discuss it. I think you're on mute, Julie.
Unmute.
There you go.
Yeah, the method for unmuting is different when you're sharing a screen than it is when you're not sharing a screen. It's very complicated, this Zoom process. First of all, explain that under current law, there is a limit on total itemized deductions that an individual itemizing deductions can take in the state of Maine. It is $28,350, excluding medical and dental expenses. So medical and dental expenses can be itemized deductions regardless of the amount. They don't go towards the $28,350. What this bill would proposes to do is to treat charitable deductions like medical and dental expenses. So there would be no limit on them and they would not apply to the $28,350 limitation for itemized deductions. Maine Revenue Services has indicated an administrative cost of $11,000. They have not provided any revenue impact at this point.
Okay, great committee discussion. Senator Pouliot. Senator Pouliot, do you have something?
Oh, just my hand was up from before, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. You're Representative Terry.
Julie, what is the federal standard deduction? The 28,000 is the state deduction, is that correct?
28,000 is the limit on itemized deductions in the state of Maine. So under federal law, whatever qualifies can be an itemized deduction. There is no limit under federal law. But Maine has said, Maine used to say whatever you had on the federal level for itemized deductions, if you were itemizing your deductions in Maine, you could use that amount in Maine as well. But a few years ago, a limit was put on that, which is now at the $28,350. And then a couple of years after that, there was a feeling that people who had extraordinary medical costs should not have to have that held against them and that they should be able to deduct those. So they were excluded from the limitation. So it depends upon what a taxpayer's combination of itemized deductions would be. If all they have for itemized deductions is charitable contributions beyond the medical, then they would have up to 28,000. If they had 28,000 of other deductions that were allowed under itemized deductions, then they might not be able to include any of their charitable deductions. So what this bill is saying is taking the charitable deductions outside of that $28,000 limit in Maine for itemized deductions. It doesn't affect standardized deductions at all.
Thank you.
Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did we hear anything from Maine Association of Nonprofits on this bill?
We did. It's in the written testimony.
Okay. And were they supportive?
They are supportive.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion not to pass as amended.
So a motion of ought to pass as amended made by Representative Bickford. Is there a second?
Second it.
Second that.
Seconded by Representative Hanley. Committee discussion, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We learned at the public hearing on college savings accounts that was part of an overall tax bill for the income tax cut. Was it changes made a few years ago that capped this at 28,000 also part of a bigger package, part of a tax cut or tax reform bill of some?
Yes, it was. I don't remember the details, but I do remember it was part of a number of different changes to the income tax law. We should depend upon Mr. Allen to give
I
a
can help you.
historical answer to that one. I'm not, because there were a variety of changes over the years, but that was part of a larger income tax change.
I can help you.
Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
That was when we, the state of Maine, we increased the standard deduction to $12,000 well before the federal government did. Federal government came in the following year and did that, I believe. And that's when we changed the maximum deductions, itemized deductions. I'm pretty sure that's how that went.
So Dr.
Federal
Allen.
government, we did.
Go ahead, Dr. Allen.
Good morning. The original cap on itemized deductions, I believe, came in, was enacted in 2013. That just placed the cap on itemized deductions, and that was part of a conformity package that included conforming to the federal higher standard deduction for joint filers that had been extended by President Obama and Congress. Representative Bickford is correct that in the 2016-2017 biennial budget, those tax changes that lowered the top income tax rate from 8.5 to 7.15, he's exactly right. We got in front of the feds and doubled our standard deduction for single filers and joint filers. But that is also the time that we phased out both the standard deduction and itemized deductions for high income taxpayers. So there was a lowering of the rates, but high income taxpayers lost their itemized deductions and their standard deductions. And that's still in place now. So even if this bill were to pass, as I think we pointed out at the public hearing, higher income taxpayers are still going to be phased out of their itemized deductions, still at the same point, and this won't have any impact on their incentive to give to charities.
So, Dr. Allen, when the changes were made a few years ago, I believe, this committee was told by some folks, representing nonprofits that there'd be a significant drop off in donations as a result of those changes, should they be made. So the changes were made. Over the last few years, have we seen a significant drop off in donations being made to charities or not?
Well, it's hard because the data that we have traditionally is from income tax returns. And the fact now that the feds have joined us and having a much higher standard deduction, there's hardly anybody that itemizes anymore. So, what we see from the IRS for what people are itemizing on their federal returns, it has declined, but that's because people aren't itemizing anymore and they're not reporting, what they contributed to charity. So it's hard to say, how people's charitable contributions have changed.
Okay. Go ahead, Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Dr. Allen, can I follow up on that, not having had the history that you all have had regarding some of the conformity changes from the package you just referenced? So can you explain in just a little more detail, trying to figure out the impact of this bill if we have it move forward? From what I'm hearing from you say is it's really a zero to negligible effect. It's not doing what it's intended to do. Is that correct?
There will be a range of taxpayers that will have higher itemized deductions if we remove the cap on charitable contributions. But it's a relatively narrow range of taxpayers. Again, because we phase out over higher income your itemized deduction. So, the joint filer with $400,000 of income in the state of Maine, they don't get an itemized deduction or a standard deduction. They are fully phased out. So the fact that this proposal will pass provides no incentive for them, no tax incentive anyways, for them to increase their charitable contributions because there's no benefit on the state side.
Representative Terry, your hand up.
No, my question was answered.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay. Any further committee discussion? Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Allen, could you give us the income range of people that might be affected by this, that would benefit from this?
I would say the phase out of the standard deduction and itemized deductions for a joint filer begins at about $165,800 of Maine adjusted gross income. So that's where you start to phase out of whatever itemized deductions that you have. So I would say for a joint filer, maybe somebody in the $100,000 to $165,000 range may be itemizing and may benefit from the removal of the cap on charitable deductions. But again, most of even those taxpayers are currently taking the standard deduction because the standard deduction is so high. And it's actually extremely close to the itemized deduction cap. But that's the group that would get the most benefit, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Great. So we have a motion on the table, ought to pass, I believe. I'm not going to be supporting the motion. I'm not convinced that it's going to lead to more charitable giving. And I don't think that it's going to have the effect that I think it might have. With the changes we made a few years ago, I don't think we did see a significant drop off, at least from what I've heard from the nonprofit community and donations from those changes. So to the contrary, what this bill does, I don't think it's going to result in significant increase in donations being made, but folks that are in those higher income ranges would be getting, the deduction that they probably don't need. Representative Sachs, did you have something else?
I did. I wanted to ask Dr. Allen, what would be the downside to this bill? Again, the information we got from one of the hospitals, for example, was saying they did believe that this would create an incentive for greater giving. Is there a downside to passing legislation such as this? Again, I apologize. My video is kind of wonky today. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, I can hear you clearly. Is there a downside? No, I guess it would be, do you to some extent want to undo the tax changes that were made in the 2016-27 biennial budget. There was a decision made at that time to lower the top marginal tax rate. And as an offset to that for higher income individuals, they would lose their itemized deductions and standard deductions. That was the trade-off. And again, while this would benefit some taxpayers, it's certainly not benefiting extremely high income taxpayers because they're phased out of the itemized deduction. So it just isn't going to affect them. So, you know, if there's a concern that, you know, people with households with incomes between, you know, $100,000 and $250,000, you know, aren't contributing as much because of the current cap at the state level, and that this may unleash a significant amount of charitable contributions, then I guess then one could argue that it would have a positive impact.
Thank you for that. I appreciate sort of the history around how this fits in a bigger picture as a newer member. Thank you.
Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Dr. Allen, on a fiscal, on the fiscal side of that, we don't have a fiscal note at this point. Can you tell us what the cost would be, or what I don't know if you could, if there was no cap, but what the cost could be for deductions to the state, you know, what we would be losing as a state?
Yeah, I don't know, because things have changed so much since the federal tax reform. And so you can only itemize at the state level if you've itemized at the federal level. And so we'd have to go, look back and see now, since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, how many people are filing at the federal level with charitable contributions above the cap, and would now be able to take those deductions at the state level.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Any further committee discussion? We've got a motion on the table, which I believe is ought to pass as amended for the fiscal note. Any further committee discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of ought to pass, please signify.
For those in favor of the motion, I have Representatives Carmichael, Hanley, Bickford, and Kryzak, and Senator Pouliot.
Okay, all those opposed?
And for those opposed to the motion, I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Representatives Terry, Collings, Matlack, Perry, and Sachs.
So that motion fails.
Yeah, I have.
So we have a motion from Senator Libby of ought not to pass. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Terry. Any further committee discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of ought not to pass?
For those in favor of the ought not to pass motion, I have Senators Chipman and Libby, Representatives Terry, Collings, Matlack, Perry, and Sachs.
All those opposed?
Just waiting on Rep. Kryzak. Okay, for those opposed, I have Senator Pouliot, Representatives Kryzak, Bickford, Hanley, and Carmichael.
All right, so that motion prevails. What's the report of those in opposition to the motion?
To pass as amended.
The best amendment. Okay.
Fiscal note only as the amendment, just to clarify.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll close the work session on LD 1251. Before we get into our next work session, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting that want to remind members to please reply to the emails from Casey Milligan regarding committee reports, so we can get bills out of committee. I think there's 4 or 5 bills that are being held up that can't go out to the full House and Senate because she's waiting on a response from members and whether they're in agreement with the committee report. So folks can please reply to those emails from Casey Milligan. That would be great. So we'll now open up the work session on LD 1257. This is sponsored by Representative Lookner. It's an act to encourage inclusionary zoning in municipalities by increasing revenue sharing. Before Julie starts to walk us through this, just wanted to say that I've got to leave in a few minutes to go present a bill to another committee. So I believe Senator Pouliot will be here, so we'll still be able to vote as a committee, but I probably won't be here for the vote on this, unfortunately. So go ahead, Julie.
Actually, sorry. Senator Chipman, Representative Kryzak has something he needs to say.
Go ahead, Representative Kryzak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering about these emails that I have to send to, I'm sorry, you mentioned the person's name to verify. Is that only if we're not voting online? If we're not online when the vote comes that we have to report? Or is that, are we doing that on every one? Because it seems to me like I'm getting more than I should.
Yeah, so in the past, our committee clerk would come up to the House and Senate chambers with a clipboard and have us sign off on these committees, regardless of how we voted. You have to sign every single report for every bill. But because we're not in session at the State House and the clerk's not able to do that for all the bills, we're doing it online. So every bill that we vote on, including all the bills we voted on today, at some point we're going to get an email from Casey Milligan asking if you're in agreement with the vote, and she'll have a list of all the members and how they voted in the email. So we have to reply to each one of them. I've actually written her an email giving a blanket email permission for an agreement with all the committee reports and all amendments and all bills, so there's a blanket approval. So I don't have to keep writing back to her every time, and she might consider doing that. But she does need to hear from you, because if she doesn't hear from you, the bills can't be reported out to the full House and Senate.
So it's on every bill, whether we're able to be in session or not?
It's on every bill that the committee votes on, yes.
It's on only divided. It's only on divided reports. If it's a unanimous report, the chairs can authorize it to be reported out. But if it is a divided report, then Casey Milligan is the head of the Legislative Information Office, which is the office that supervises the committee clerks. So when the amendment is done being processed by the revisor's office, they send it to the Legislative Information Office, and Casey sends an email to everyone on the committee just to make sure that you're listed on the correct side of the divided report. As Senator Chipman explained in the past, that would have been verified by simply checking the voting sheet that the committee clerk would put together for you. But since you're not all there for her to be able to get your signatures on a voting sheet, this new email method is the substitution. The Legislative Information Office needs to hear from each of you when there's a divided report that that you are listed correctly.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious because I seem to be sending more emails than I ever signed before.
Yeah, well, that's why, because we're not meeting in person. So it's just the divided reports. But if you get an email from Casey Milligan, it's because she needs you to respond to something. So if people don't respond, the bills get kind of bottlenecked up in legislative information, and they can't come out. There were 4 or 5 bills we could have voted on yesterday, and when we had session that came from this committee that we couldn't take up because she hadn't gotten a response. So folks can.
So I'd like to make a motion that Avery come and to each of our houses and have a sign that it was a lot easier.
Get right on that.
We'll chip in.
So we'll resume our work session on LD 1251, and I guess we're ready for Julie to walk us through. LD 1257, and we'll have Julie walk us through this bill.
Yes, LD 1257, as you mentioned, is Representative Lookner's bill This bill would provide an incentive to municipalities to adopt inclusionary zoning. It would do this by adding an additional transfer to the local government fund, which funds state municipal revenue sharing, of 0.25% of the revenue sharing base. So the currently revenue sharing base, at least at the moment, is 3.75% of income tax, sales tax, and a portion of service provider tax goes to the local government fund for revenue sharing. This bill would add an additional 0.25% of the revenue sharing base, which would go to a special fund for inclusionary, to support municipalities which adopt inclusionary zoning. And inclusionary zoning is defined in the bill, but essentially it's defined to intend to support municipalities that adopt planning ordinances that provide for essentially expanded housing options in residential and mixed use zones to allow greater density in residential housing units, to permit workforce housing development, reduce minimum lot sizes, permitting workforce housing development, reducing, allowing for accessory dwelling units, and reducing the percentage of neighborhoods zoned for single family dwellings. So the money that the extra 0.25% that goes into the inclusionary zoning fund would be distributed to municipalities that have adopted inclusionary zoning. And the intent is to increase the availability of affordable housing. I think that's pretty much it. I believe that Representative Lookner is here to provide more information if he wants. Oh, I also wanted to mention there is a related bill in the Labor and Housing Committee, LD 609, which was actually engrossed in both the House and the Senate yesterday, but it stopped. It didn't get further than being engrossed in both bodies, so it hasn't been enacted yet. That bill would create a study to look at the concept essentially of inclusionary zoning. I have that bill. I could share it with you. It's also, I think, listed on the webpage. But I just want to let you know that was also underway.
Thank you, Julie. Are there any committee questions? Yeah, please, I was just going to say, if you could electronically raise your hand. I can't see everybody today. Representative Hanley.
Yes. Do we have a definition for inclusionary zoning?
It's in the bill. I essentially read it to you, but I mean, I can read it word for word. It means municipal planning ordinances applicable to residential and mixed use zones that are classified by the state as urban and that encourage affordable housing in at least 25% of the areas located in residential or mixed use zones within the municipality and designated for residential housing by policies including but not limited to allowing greater density and development of residential housing units, permitting workforce housing development, reducing minimum lot sizes, allowing for accessory dwelling units, and reducing the percentage of neighborhoods zoned for single family dwellings. That's in the bill as the definition of inclusionary zoning.
And Julie, is that also what is that same language in 609?
I think 609 is different. Let me pull this out here. Somewhere I have 609.
While you're looking that up, I believe Representative Lookner, you have something you wanted to add.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to draw around this discussion around inclusionary zoning. I wanted to draw the committee's attention to testimony provided by GrowSmart Maine on this bill. Jeff Levine from GrowSmart suggested that we actually change the language to not call this inclusionary zoning, but something like smart and equitable growth district, because there is a another legal definition for inclusionary zoning that's used elsewhere. So I'm in favor of that. And I think that would get at the main real estate developers' concerns. They were concerned about the definition of inclusionary zoning and some of these other like MMA that's come out. It seems like Kate Defer seemed to think that they would come out against it based on some of that language. So I think that's changing the definition. In my bill, it doesn't match what the agreed upon legal definition of inclusionary zoning is. So that might be worth taking a look at and amending.
Representative Lookner, have you seen LD 609 that we passed yesterday?
I haven't, no, I haven't taken a deep dive into that. It's exciting.
Okay. Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not really thrilled with changing our revenue sharing and making a separate account for municipalities. I'm going to make a motion not to pass.
Second it.
There's been a motion made ought not to pass. Julie, I think, were you going to jump in on 609?
Yes, I'm looking at 609 now. It is a resolve to set up a group to study it's sort of one of the usual suspects type of groups that all of the interested people and some legislators as well. The duties of the commission are to review data on housing. They don't specifically define inclusionary zoning, but their duties are to review data on housing shortages in the state for low income and middle income households, review state laws that affect local regulation of housing, review efforts in other states and municipalities to address housing shortages through changes to zoning and land use restrictions, consider measures that would encourage increased housing options in the state, including but not limited to municipal incentives, state mandates, eliminating or limiting single family only zones and allowing greater housing density near transit, jobs, schools, or neighborhood centers, and review and consider the historical role of race and racism in zoning policies and the best measures to ensure that state and municipal zoning laws do not serve as barriers to racial equality.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie, very much for looking that up. Representative Sachs.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm also looking at not only 609, but also 1240, which was Senator Vitale's bill that looks at it regionally as well. And within 609, it does talk about multiple looking at incentives as well as barriers to it. As I think everybody on this committee knows, my third rail is municipal revenue sharing, so that would not be my preferred incentive program. I'm not opposed to incentives, but I do worry about, again, these continual barrage of bills that do a carve out for municipal revenue sharing. With so much respect for Representative Lookner's efforts on this, this is not a bill I can support, both for the carve out as well as I would love to see with the things that we've done in this committee around expanding the definition of TIF to include affordable housing. I think that is a game changer for this. And then talking to municipalities about lowering the barriers and what they can do regulatorily, and then what other incentives. For me, it's really about the revenue sharing piece that I just don't feel I can support. But again, with all due love and deference to Representative Lookner.
Thank you. Senator Pouliot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I definitely think that one of the ways that we're going to address our affordable housing crisis in this state is by revamping a lot of our zoning, in the municipalities, particularly in more densely populated areas. It's just crazy. Like, for instance, I have a home for sale right now in Falmouth, and the minimum lot size requirement on US Route 1 for a dwelling unit is like 1.5 acres in Falmouth. It's crazy. Like, the home's 5,000 plus square feet could easily be turned into a duplex and provide for perhaps 2 families instead of just one. But the zoning doesn't allow it. So this density issue really is a problem in Maine, and you know, it's tough because the state really, we respect local control, right? And so all that we can really do is try to create incentives for towns to do this. We can't go in to say Falmouth and thou shall have, you know, 1/4 acre lot size per dwelling unit. It's just not, it's never going to fly in Maine. So we do have to try to figure out like some ways to create some carrots here around this for the municipalities, and that I do like the, you know, the aspect of sharing some state resources as an incentive to do that. I'm just not sure, as I said on the floor of the Senate last night, I'm really, you know, trying to get an increase to 100% on the homestead exemption. And I recognize we have a lot of money coming in and these are different tools, but for me personally, until we get to that 100% reimbursement on homestead, I can't see other money have gone toward 100% reimbursement, you know, for other things. So I know that's a lot of info. I wanted to Rep. Faulkner to know that I'm very supportive of the efforts to try to address this zoning issue, because for years since I first started in the legislature, it's been the primary way that I think we're getting held back from being able to have more units in this state available to people. And I've really struggled with how to address that. I'm hoping that this study in LD 609 will help give us some ideas, but I'm with you on the intent of this bill, just not the mechanism by which we're trying to get there.
Thank you. Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure you heard my second.
I did, yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other further committee discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table ought not to pass by Representative Bickford, seconded by Representative Kryzak. All those in favor? Looks like unanimous. Avery, got that okay? Yep, terrific. All right, that closes the work session on LD 1257. Thank you, Representative Lookner, for being here with us, and we look forward to seeing more work on this in the future. Let's see, next up, Julie. My computer's being very slow. Is
Yep.
on the trailer, I believe, trailer bill.
Yes, in
61, sorry.
1261?
Yes. It's 1261 is the only one left on the work session.
Camping bill.
Sorry, Ann, what was that?
The camping bill.
Correct.
Campgrounds bill.
Somehow or other, I lost it from my share list when I was moving around, trying to find the language on those other bills, but LD 1261 is Representative Hepler's bill. It is intended to address or to provide a sales tax exemption, basically, for people who are renting spaces at a sometimes referred to as campgrounds. Other names are applied to these spaces, but basically a space to place their tent or camper trailer or truck camper or RVs designed for camping. There are a variety of different types of vehicles that would fall into this category, but the idea is that if they rent a space to locate their tent or vehicle for recreational purposes, that essentially that they would not have to pay the sales tax on lodging for those issues. The bill itself got kind of complicated in the way it is set up, because the terms that are currently used for the lodging tax says that it applies to taxes on tourist camps or trailer camps, which are defined terms in the statute. The bill proposes to change those terms to campground using a definition that's in Title 22 under the I guess, sort of, I don't know whether it's registration or licensing, but people who are doing this type of business have to be registered or licensed with the Department of Health and Human Services. So there is a definition of campground. Campground definition is broad enough to include not only the types of spaces that Representative Hepler was trying to address, but also potentially structures that might be located within those types of facilities. So substituting for campground for tourist and trailer camp is not, it just raises a lot of ambiguity and confusion with regard to what's happening. So I looked at a lot of this, and it seemed to me, after having the work session and the questions that were asked and speaking with Representative Hepler, that a simpler way to do this would simply be to provide a sales tax exemption for, and I've got this, I can bring it up. I worked with Representative Hepler to come up with a proposed amendment to do that. And it would simply add an exemption section. As I said, I can bring it up, but let me talk a little bit first, because I can't do two of those things at once. I believe that she is here to talk about this, or at least she was hoping to be. I'm not sure what her timing availability was, but she has seen this and said that she thinks it's a good idea. So it would provide an exemption for the rental of a site for the location by the renter of a tent house, a strange term, but it's used in the Title 22, I think, or maybe it's even in the Title 36 language, but it's used currently to refer to this type of lodging. Truck, camper, camper trailer, or other mobile vehicle designed for camping for the purpose of providing temporary living quarters for recreational camping, travel, or other use. So the renting of sites to locate one of those types of structures, temporary structures, at least on the site, would be exempt from sales tax. And I am hoping that, I'm not seeing that Avery's brought Representative Hepler up yet, but I will. Oh, there she is. I was expecting to just see the name. I didn't realize that she had a picture already. Yes, let me bring up the amendment and share that with you so you can see it. It's quite short, but she should speak to it. So this strikes everything that's currently in the bill and substitutes only this exemption for the camping sites. I'm not hearing anyone.
Yeah, you're on here. I'm reading this.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
So can I ask a quick question about this, actually? So what if it's a boat? What if it's a space at a marina versus it's a boat instead of a camper?
There's no sales tax on the rental of a space at the marina for a boat.
Okay.
The sales tax does not apply to that.
Gotcha.
It's only for lodging.
Oh,
which under current law includes trailer sites and tourist sites.
Gotcha. Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to make a motion not to pass as amended with Julie's amendment that she so eloquently wrote, and also with no.
Second it.
Okay. A motion has been made ought to pass as amended with language and a fiscal note by Representative Bickford and seconded by Representative Kryzak. Further committee discussion? Representative Matlack.
Is this similar in nature to the bill that came before us with regard to RVs that we heard a week or so ago and made a decision on?
Julie, I think that's for
Julie,
you.
I'm sorry, that's for you.
I think you're referring to LD 611, which relates to in current law, there's an exemption for the rental of any kind of housing that if the person resides continuously for 28 days or longer, and they don't have a primary residence in another location, or they are residing away from their primary residence due to employment or education. That the LD 611 adds into that continuous residence provision an exemption for it says rental charge to an individual who resides continuously in a trailer camp for 90 days or more. So it, I think, is addressing the same kind of issue, but in a different way.
Thank you.
Any further committee discussion? I have a question, Julie. So I'm not sure if anybody's aware of a sort of like an Airbnb kind of rental website sort of thing called Tenter, which rents campgrounds, campsites on private property, kind of all over the place. It's essentially Airbnb for tents. If a person were to, and I'm not sure how that platform, no pun intended, because they are platforms. I'm not sure how the taxing goes, how taxes go on that particular thing, but I would imagine it's like Airbnb. If you rent a space, the platform itself charges a sales tax for it. So their campgrounds, would that include this for for a longer term rental? Like if, say, you were to rent for that space for 2 months versus usual short-term lodging, which is under 28 days, would that pull this sort of thing out of that as well?
Well, it would create a sales tax exemption. So yes, I assume so, but I'm going to defer to Ms. Method, who's here from Maine Revenue Services, the head of the sales tax division.
I would like to ask that question, Ms. Method, if you wouldn't mind answering that, and maybe another one as well.
Sure. Good morning, Representative Terry and the Taxation Committee. I'm Judy Method, the Director of the Sales, Fuel, and Special Tax Division. So your question regarding the Airbnb type for camping, this particular bill would exempt that if the person brought their own tent. I do understand that those types of platforms sometimes will outfit the whole site. So not just a wooden platform, but also the tent and those type of things. So if the tent was provided, this particular exemption would not apply. This exemption applies if someone is just renting a site and brings their own tent or camper or a truck camper or trailer. And it exempts it regardless of the length of the stay. It's completely exempt regardless of the length of the stay. 611 exempted rental of the sites by people who stayed there for 90 days. So 611, it did depend upon, it was more toward seasonal campers and exempting those stays that were 90 days or more.
So it was 90 days, and this one takes that back down to 28 days.
No, it takes it to any period of time. So if you stayed for the weekend, rented a site, as long as you brought your own tent or trailer or truck camper, your own basically accommodations, it would be exempt.
So, and then those companies that rent the spaces, or that, I know of one in particular that has platforms and already made up tents. So they're going to have two different kinds. They're going to have two different tax programs essentially within their business.
Because if you're just renting a space, it would be exempt. If you're renting actually the tent and the space, it would be taxable.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Representative Terry. And that's much of what I was going to say. This seems like an overcomplication. Again, this is the first time I'm seeing the amendment. My apologies, Julie, if it had been distributed beforehand. But it would seem to me it was not, okay, because I was looking through all my stuff. So that's a little unfortunate, but this seems like a problem and a solution in search of a problem. I'm not sure it will incentivize anything and just overly complicate for campgrounds, et cetera. So I'm not in support of this bill. I understand, I think, the intent sort of, but it just does not seem to me to be a viable piece. But thank you.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, do we have a main revenue service estimate of the impact of this?
Let's see, we have Dr. Allen on board.
We don't at this time. I'm sorry. I'm I'm writing an RFC report at the same time I'm listening to the thing. We don't. I know for the last bill, this is off the top of my head. I think we were guessing at the moment, the 9% tax on lodging at campgrounds was maybe somewhere in the 10 million range. And I suspect this would eliminate almost all of that, to the extent that most people are bringing their own tents, other accommodations with them, as Judy pointed out.
I think you said for a follow-up, but you're on mute. No, you're all good. Okay, terrific. Any further, Representative Perry?
Thank you. I just don't see, we had almost unanimous in both the House and Senate yesterday to support revenue sharing. That has to compete with everything else. I just question if a $10 million fiscal note's realistic, or would rise above some of these other priorities, and we'd be doing appropriations a favor if we dispensed with it here.
Okay, thank you. Any further committee discussion? All right, we have a motion on the table, ought to pass as amended with language and fiscal note by Representative Bickford, seconded by Representative Kryzak. See no more committee discussion. All those in favor?
So I have Senator Pouliot and Representatives Kryzak, Bickford, Hanley, and Carmichael.
All those against? Senator Pouliot, is your vote for or against?
Against.
Against.
So right now I have 5-5.
So Avery, did you have Senator Pouliot as a 4 earlier?
Oh, yes, I had him as 4. Is it against?
Yeah, against.
Okay. So for those against the motion, I have Senator Pouliot, Representatives Terry, Collings, Matlack, Perry, and Sachs.
All right, so the motion fails. Representative Matlack?
I'll move on not to pass.
Second.
We have a motion ought not to pass by Representative Matlack, seconded by Representative Sachs. All those in favor?
Okay, for those in favor of the ought not to pass motion, I have Senator Pouliot, Representatives Terry, Collings, Matlack, Perry, and Sachs.
And all those against?
And for those against, I have Representatives Kryzak, Bickford, Hanley, and Carmichael.
And the motion, say that right, Julie.
Can I clarify that the minority report will be ought to pass as amended with the fiscal note and the amendment proposed submitted today?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and I believe that concludes our work for this morning. Julie, got anything else for us for now? Just a reminder again to respond to any of Casey's emails so we can get some stuff out of this committee and onto the floor. Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
All right, Avery, we have public hearings this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Do you, will you have a separate link for us for that?
Yep, provided no technical difficulties, it should be this same link.
Okay, and the time for this block of Zoom is longer. I think that was our issue last time, correct? Yep, okay, awesome. All right, we'll see y'all back here at 1 o'clock then. Thanks so much, everyone.